Faith is a lifestyle. It is the mountain on which you stand that makes you believe that a dream is actually attainable. It is a concrete evidence that makes the logically impossible seem completely tangible. It seemed hopeless, but faith. I can't prove it, but faith. I can't explain it, but my faith has given me peace.
I'm a Christian with $100 million vision. Can nobody box me and say that's a contradiction? Goal driven, God just blessed me with the ambition. Look up when there is, he reads the definition.
The gentleman's already explained it to you.
Okay, tell it to me again. You telling me we cannot eat here?
So unfortunately, we do have a dress code. If you have some non-athletic shorts.
But that white kid out there can eat here with his tennis shoes on and his athletic shirt.
So we allow tennis shoes, but not athletic shorts and t-shirts.
He has on you telling me that's not an athletic shirt? Not that one, but you telling me that little boy who just ate here does not have on an athletic shirt?
I'm sorry. I would love for you to be able to come back and eat here.
So you telling me my son can't eat here because he has on athletic stuff?
No, just the shorts. It is part of our dress code. We try to enforce
So it's
it.
only his short? Only the short can't be athletic?
The shorts and the t-shirt, yes.
But the little boy has on an athletic, the little white kid that just sat out there had on an athletic tennis shoes and an athletic shirt.
I understand that you're upset. If there's any...
No, it's not that I'm upset. The little boy out there had on you telling me it's no athletic wear. The little boy out there had on athletic tennis shoes and an athletic shirt. So why does he get to wear athletic wear and my son can't?
I would love for you to be able to come back. Do you live close enough for your son to change?
No, I don't. I just want to know why it's different for my son.
I understand how you feel.
I don't want you to sympathize with me. I just want you to tell me why it's different for my son. I'm not looking for sympathy. I'm just asking you why it's different for my son.
I understand.
Then that little kid that was out there with athletic tennis shoes and...
The t-shirt that the little kid was wearing, we don't consider that to be athletic t-shirt.
Why?
Honestly, I did not get a good look, but it looked like a regular t-shirt.
I have a video. Do you want to see it?
If you would like to show it to me, I'm happy to look, but
First of all, let's try this again with the sound on. So, ladies and gentlemen, my bad. Oh God, I have a lot to talk about tonight, and it would behoove me to actually have the sound on when I was trying to talk. Oh man, that was a restaurant in Baltimore, Ouzo Bay, and I have to sort of apologize to everyone. Because, I've eaten at Ouzo Bay before. Actually, on several occasions, being as a friend of mine frequents there, I was hanging out. However, it's not eating there that has been the problem. It's the fact that a lot of places in Baltimore are inherently racist. And we sometimes are so accepting of racism that we don't know it exists. And because a lot of times, especially between me and my white friends, we see racism as sort of an overt evil, someone trying to do some harm to somebody, some type of hatred. And the truth is, in Baltimore, there are bars in which try to control the type of people that come into their bar, and so they won't sell particular products like Hennessy or Ciroc or products that bring a certain type of clientele they don't serve. And it's a very known fact in Baltimore that it is a very it's a very known fact in that, you know, you can just sort of look around and be like, oh, this place don't want black people here, because you can look at the bar and look at the products of the bar. They don't sell Remy. They don't sell anything that would be sort of that would attract black clientele. While that's not hatred, that's not people who, you know, who overtly hate you. That are people who just kind of don't want your kind around. And so when we look at that video from Ouzo Bay, which is it's a really nice restaurant, you know. They do have a dress code. You know, it's a nice place. It's expensive. It's, you know, seafood, expensive, tastes good. But here's the thing. The thing is not that you were enforcing a dress code. That's not the problem. The problem is you missed the white kid. The problem is, see, racism is such a covert thing. It makes you look at one kid harder than you look at the other one, so the other one can walk right past you like a ghost. But you'll look at the one whom you are, to your mind, focuses on, and see that one as the problem. Racism is such a covert thing. I've said this on this show before. I've said it on everybody's show that I've been on talking about this particular issue. Racism is, in fact, a demon. It's demonic. It is demonic because it's the kind of demon that sits behind the scenes and pulls the strings. It justifies the most evil in us. It tells you that a murderer is okay because you will argue for racism and not know that you're even arguing for it. It will justify murder. It justified slavery for so many years. You can watch a police officer murder a person in cold blood and argue for the police officer because we're so connected to a system that we fight to defend it even in the face of blatant evil. Racism is such a demon. It is so wrong. But it's the demon you can't see. It is a demon that you just simply cannot see. And what happened at the Ouzo Bay restaurant, and unfortunately, the guy has, you know, lost his job because, you know, the owners of the restaurant came down hard on him. And the truth is, it really wasn't his fault. It really wasn't, you know, how could he have done? Like, you know, what he saw is what he was systemically trained to see. He was taught to see that. And in order for him to have seen something different, he has to recognize that he needs to fight a system that taught him to see that. And unfortunately, we ignore the fact that even exists. So we can't, you know, we will force ourselves not to see what is blatantly in front of our face. And even when told that, he justified it over and over and over. He was told, look at a little boy, same outfit, white kid. And he goes, yeah, well, whatever, you still can't come in. And so even in the face of being told that, denying the fact that it exists. And so many, like I have so many white friends that deny it exists. That deny it exists will disqualify the experiences of millions of people to deny that it exists. Man, this is an interesting thing right here, man. I got so much to talk about, but I got a special guest with me. This is the Elevation Podcast. My name is Shawn Riff-Raff. Let's go.
Royalty, stand up, brand up, fam up, hand out, no way, hands up, know what, name that, it's mine, claim that, it's time, message, we shine, above all. decline. The darkness cannot last. The shadow of my past. Before I gain knowledge of heritage, I had the bloodline that I shed. Most powerful out here. The mover of mountains is who I am touting. The richest among us is who I'm the son of. From sundown to sun up, that's how I then come up. Position is just mine. The favor in due time. Can't have it, man, you lying. The powerless, you trying. Enemy beneath me, there's nothing to teach me. The people receive me, cause my God complete me. And my God does keep me. And my God they free me. And my God redeem me. And my God relieve me. I'm king of the million, crown me. I am winning my position. God's giving, God's sending, God's choosing.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Elevation Podcast. My name is Shawn Riff-Raff, and I am definitely here. Happy to be here. Happy that this, that we're here. We get to have these particular type of conversations. And this is a time, right? This is a time. I am happy tonight that a good friend of mine will be joining me in this particular conversation. A good friend of mine, and just someone who has been a good voice in these particular times. And I think that he's one of the best voices we can have in this particular time, in my opinion. You know what I mean? Gospel artist, gospel hip hop artist, and my man Russ Shanks. What's up, brother?
What's up, man? How you doing?
Oh man, man. Man, before we get into what I really want to talk about, right? Of course, y'all know Russ James. He's been on here a couple of times, so I don't really got to give him no real introduction like that. But before we get into this, what is your feelings when you see things like what happened to go viral on with the Uzo Bay in Baltimore? Being as we're from Baltimore, I lived in Baltimore for 10 years, and you're from Baltimore,
right? So. It was so many things that manager could have done to remedy the issue. Because once a precedent is set, when somebody's making a complaint, but a precedent is set that goes against that complaint,
right?
You have to make it right.
Right.
All he had to do when the lady brought to his attention that there was another young man that had on pretty much the same thing that her son had on. Right. Oh, my bad. Welcome. Come on in. Maybe we'll catch it next time. But you're welcome to join us right now. Come on, son. What you celebrating? Maybe we can offer you complimentary meal if you're celebrating a graduation or something. We can give you a dessert or something. Could have done something to make it better instead of trying to argue the point and keep saying, I'm sorry, but I can't let you die here because you don't have on the right clothes. And then if you look at the camera, if you look at the footage, there's another person to their left that have on sneakers too, and look like they have on shorts. They're standing, look like they're waiting to be seated with them. But of course, the person had Caucasian legs, so we already know how that was going down. So if the dress code is the dress code, then it should apply to everyone.
Right.
But if you saw that it was folks that were in there that wasn't following the dress code, then you say, okay, we didn't catch a few people, so we're just going to ignore you right now. Come on in, have a seat. How can I serve you? Period, point blank. He made it worse for himself by trying to justify the policy when he had already broken, or missed he didn't address the policy with other folks.
Right. Why do you think, and I think that we are inherently, we have gotten accustomed to the way that the world works, right? Mm-hmm. We have sort of just like I said at the beginning, there are certain things, and like even when you look at Baltimore City, when you go in certain places, they there are certain things we accustomed to it, and so it's hard, I think, to point out racism when it has been just the thing we did for so long. Mm-hmm. How do you in a world in which I don't believe most people are bad, like I don't believe there are a whole bunch of people out here like with evil intentions, and I can honestly say that I don't believe, none of my, I have a ton of white friends. None of them have evil intentions. I don't think they do. How do we address something that is so incredibly covert, like that is so incredibly, it is so incredibly nuanced into our regular lifestyle? How do we address that without sort of pointing the finger at everybody and calling them evil when it's not really a thing. It's not really evil,
Right. Well, there's a scripture in the Bible that says we are compassed with many clouds of witnesses, right? So with all this video that's being created, all this footage that's being captured of the Karens and the Kevins and and everything else, you would think that folks would start getting the message and start doing things different. But I really don't have an answer on how to address it, because it seems like it's just like being stuck in the matrix, right? You when you're trying to bring people out of the matrix, they're so used to their normal
Absolutely.
that they will fight to protect it and try to stay in that fantasy land where they think everything is sweet, everything is the way they want it to be.
Right.
And to change it will cause some kind of discomfort,
Yeah.
and they don't want to go through the discomfort. So, I saw a video. I actually watched it before the podcast, and there was a gentleman, an African American gentleman, who followed a woman who cut him off in her car and then flipped him off and called him the N-word. So him being the petty one, in quotations,
Right.
followed her. And then when he got out of his car to address her, she went into freak out mode and was crying, "You're attacking me. You're doing this. You're doing that." And he was just asking her a question like, "Why did you flip me off? Why did you call me the N-word?" And then, of course, she drew a crowd. She was yelling and screaming. So everybody's looking at him. He's like, "All I did was ask her a question." But, if she didn't want her license plate to be recorded, she didn't want her face being recorded, because she knows the repercussions of what can happen if she
Sure.
was exposed, if her covertness of how covert racism was exposed. She already knows what the repercussions can be. But they want to be able to hide and be in their little fantasy world and continue to treat people like they want to treat people without any repercussions. And to expose that will just ruin their lives and cause discomfort.
Yeah, like that. That's one of the things I think it's so ingrained in our society that we don't even notice it anymore. And I look at my own self, and I go to places in which I know you're doing something racist. It's almost like I'm like, it's all good though. You know what I'm saying? Like I go places
Right.
in which I know that's what you're doing, but like I just accept it. I've got a question here from a Karen. And well, it's not really a question. It's sort of her statement, and it's an interesting statement because she says racism works both ways.
Oh my God, here we go.
How do you when you hear someone say that? And I think that sometimes people say stuff like racism work both ways, and and it's kind of hard to is that true? Do you think that's true? Like when someone says like racism works both ways.
No, I don't think it's
I think
true. And the reason why-
racists work both ways. And
right, racist and racism. Like if I hated a certain race, because of how it would be because how I was treated by that particular race, right? So if I had experiences with the KKK or with the neo-Nazis or something like that, and I was treated poorly, then yeah, I would probably be suspect of anybody who looked like them, right? But for a person to say that I'm racist against all, because the thing is, it wasn't inbred in me from birth, like with some of the others, some of our counterparts.
right,
Racism for them was a culture, or it was a way of life. It was a religion.
right,
You know what I'm saying? It wasn't brought on by some kind of terrible uh, experience. Well, for some it may have been, but for most of the country, you know, when they brought our ancestors over, they had already set the system up, the racist system up, because we were 3/5 of a human. We wasn't even a full human. We were sold as cattle or
Right.
chattel, as they
We
call
weren't.
it.
We
And
weren't no
so,
fifths of a human when they first. Three
right,
fifths of a
exactly.
human came in the
So,
Constitution.
and then if you look at all the systems that were built even after Juneteenth, you know, you had the bombing of Black Wall Street. Why did they feel the need to do it? Why couldn't, if they want us to stand, pull ourselves up by our bootstraps like they always say, get a job, do this, do that. Our ancestors did that in Black Wall Street, and
Right.
y'all burned it down. So then when we tried to get out on our own again, y'all gave us the red line system. Then y'all pumped drugs and guns into our neighborhoods, and then mass incarceration, like things like that. You can't tell me that these are not designs to destroy us, or to at least keep us uh, at boots, at the height of a boot. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So it's at the same time, we racism can work both ways, but our reasoning for feeling like you are racist against us because we're African American, we have we have what I'm trying to say, we have instances where in history where it's proven. Your
Right.
little personal incident, because somebody brought that to my attention before. Like I had an experience with an African American guy. He called me this, he called me that,
Yeah.
because we was in a traffic accident. I said, okay, so he was angry because he was in a traffic accident.
Right.
So if he called you all that because he was angry because of that accident, but we don't react to you that way for everything else that was done to us, who's really racist?
Right. So I see two different conversations, right? And I always I try to point it this way because I see two different conversations. I see the conversation about a racist person, which is very individual. Then I see the conversation about racism. A racist
Right.
person is a person who will purposely be demeaning or evil to someone else based on the color of their skin. That's a
That's
racist
it.
person. And anyone can be a racist person, right? If you generalize other people, if you talking about the blacks and the whites and the Mexicans and the Muslims, you're a racist, right? That is inherently, when you think you're better than someone else based on color of your skin, you're racist. Anybody can be that way. Racism is
Right.
different. Racism is an infrastructure built on the color of someone's skin. Racism is what happens when someone walks into your restaurant as the manager and you are sort of drawn to one race over the other one, and you don't even see the equal of the two. So like two
Hmm.
people walk into the bar, they walk into the restaurant dressed exactly the same. One's white, one's black, and you only focus on the black one because of the way the structure and the media and the way you were raised and the way you were brought up and the culture and everything turns you to point to that one individual without seeing the fact that is equal sin around here. That is a racist. That is a system of racism that's happening without you even knowing it. You actually don't have to be the racist in that particular thing. You were
You
just
don't.
following a system. You know what I'm saying? Like you were just following a system that is already turned for a certain particular color of skin people to be looked at differently. I posted this thing on my Facebook page, and it was a story. It went viral about a white lady who adopted a black kid, and it was such a powerful story that it's such a powerful story because a lot of white people don't recognize that white that is a thing. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like they don't recognize their whiteness until like this lady, you know, said it. Like, I didn't recognize the differences, like, you know, how being black is really different. And so she adopted a black kid, and they had to move for her husband got relocated, so they had to move. So they purchased a house. The house had been vacant for 6 months. So she was in the house. Husband was at work. She was in the house painting the house. The 14-year-old kid was on the lawn raking the leaves. And police rolled up. You know, 3 squad cars rolled up because they got a call that it was a trespassing on a property. And, you know, they got out the car, walked right up to this 14-year-old kid, and the lady walks out the house. And she says in her post that she could tell that her whiteness calmed the situation. Like, they looked at it and they said, oh, okay, everything must be all right then. Right? And she was able to tell them, no, I own this house. We live here. This is my child, you know, and everything's cool. And she was like, that was just a isolated incident. Until she got pulled over for speeding, which happened when her kid was 15. She got pulled over for speeding. She has a 15-year-old kid in the passenger side, right? And in the you know, you got a 15-year-old kid in the passenger side. You pulled over for speeding, right? And the cop comes up to the car. A few cops pull up. You know, the cop comes up to the car, hand on the gun, right? She pulls out her license and registration like she's supposed to do, right? Cop's hand on the gun, female cop. Cop's hand on the gun. Comes up to the window, ma'am, are you okay? Right? And she's like, well, What do you mean, am I okay? She goes, here's my license and registration. Cop does not take her license and registration. Don't want it. Right? Does he have ID? Talking about her 15-year-old in the passenger seat. Yeah. Does he have ID? Remember. Right? And so she's like, well, he's 15. No. Does he have a school ID? And she's like, well, no, it's the summertime. He doesn't carry a school ID, right? And they're like, well, what's his social security number? And at this point, the light pops on and she realizes what this is. And she went all of this time without understanding what this was, right? And all of a sudden, the cops kept asking, they took it. She gave him the social security number. They went back to the car to run his social security number without ever taking her license. And she was breaking the law, not him. You know what I'm saying? And so it's like, and that is inherently, and so she learns about racism through, having adopted a black child. And that is inherently how racism works. Like, you can see 2 people in the car, and your automatic assumption is that the skin color is doing something wrong. That's racism. I'm understanding of people that say that black people can be racist, which I get it. Anybody can hate somebody because of the color of their skin. I get that. Go ahead.
So it's funny that you say that, because it's even when you're dealing with us, we tend, and I might get flack for this, but we tend to also trust the white face, or the white face thing comes to calm us down in certain situations.
You ain't getting flack from me.
Right, but I mean, but you feel what I'm saying. Mm-hmm. Even when we're dealing with each other, it's sometimes the white face that comes to calm us. We'll trust the word of the white counterpart versus our black counterpart. So even in that, it's like, even after everything that our ancestors have been through at the hands of their ancestors, we still tend to trust them more than we trust our own.
Right.
That's why you have to put out messages saying support black businesses, because for some reason we'll trust the business owned by a group of people instead of going, trusting the black situation
Right.
sometimes. But I mean, now I'm thankful for the surge that's happening where, okay, now the floodgates are open because we recognize that, the power of our dollar, and we're now pushing it in a different direction.
Right.
After the Vince's Crab House situation, we're pushing it in a different direction.
Right.
Prayerfully, we can keep that wave going and keep circulating the dollar in the black community, or at least, help build up these black owned businesses that are treating us correctly and that are providing us great customer service, and help bring them up to the same levels, money wise, as their white counterparts. So it's weird. They're protesting in front of Vince's Crab House, but I'm like, for what? Why do we care? And why do we want to completely shut that place down when all he's going to do is open up in a different location? Just
Change
don't
the name.
just don't support it. Just don't patronize it, and just let it die slowly. That's just how I see it. I mean, going up there protesting, you're giving the those who do support that business an opportunity to set up GoFundMe accounts, to now shift their support from wherever they buy their crabs to come there, just to make sure that they don't fall. But if it was a sneak attack where they just sat around wondering, like, why haven't we sold any crabs today? Or as many crabs as we thought we want to sell. You could even prank call the people and say, look, let me get 30 dozen of crabs. I'll be able to pick them up at 7 o'clock, and then you don't show up. I mean, because that's wasted inventory right
Right.
there. I mean, you could have been slick with it, but instead we want, to go up there and holler and scream, which, of course, if that's what you want to do, that's fine. But you got to understand that your dollar is more powerful than your voice. Don't spend your money there.
I think that's one of the. I think actually that's one of the most important things. I think that's one of the most important things that we got to learn in this sort of in this moment that we're in right now, right? The black dollar attributes to so much of we are so much of the economy. And I think
Right.
it's something in the line. It's either $14 trillion a year that the black dollar goes into. Is it 14 or 1.4? I know that's a crazy. I know that's a crazy, crazy number. But we attribute so much to the economy, in which case yelling about stuff, it works. Marching about it works. Because you bring in awareness when you march. When you yell about it, when you try to get them to change policy, voting, it works. But what also works is when people show that they overtly are racist, like with the Vince Crab House. Because there's one thing, the covert racism just has to be brought into the forefront, so everyone can
Right.
see, like, this is what racism looks like, right? The covert stuff has to be brought to the forefront. But when people are just overtly racist, that means take those millions of dollars that we put into their pockets and we take them out of their pockets. And I think that is important. That is an important lesson to understand, that we can yell and scream about it, so that we taking our money from you, right? You can march about it, which is cool. I'm down for the march. I'm down for the yelling and screaming. I'm down for that. But we also gotta understand that our money does matter, right? I think I read a statistic of the poverty rate in the black community is like 25%. And which is stupid high, right? But that means 75% of us are buying. You know what I'm saying? Like, that means most of us not in poverty, and a lot of us is buying. So, that's one of the things I always say. All of these things go together. Vote for people whom you believe in. Don't allow people to hijack your vote. Don't allow people to play the black card. Vote for people you believe in what they say. You believe in what they're doing. I'm very much so not into the partisanship. I'm very much so not into the partisanship and not into that type of thing. But I believe we should vote. Vote for people. Ooh, I lost you. Lost you for a second there. There we go. You back. Vote for people based on what you believe in. I wanna go to another point here, because we could talk about racism all night, because we got 400 years of it, 401 this year, because we got here in 1619, and this is 2020, so we got 401 years of it to talk about. I want to talk about culture though. As a musician, as an artist, as a musician, I feel like there is a lot of work that artists and musicians can do in the culture to really effectively make change. I feel like there's a lot of work that we can do in the culture to effectively make change and really get out there. What are some things that you think, being a Christian hip hop artist? You got your life together there? There we go. Being a Christian hip hop artist, what are some things you think in this particular climate that we can do as artists, to really make some change in the climate? I think about most of the activism things that have happened have been negative, right? So I always like to go back to NWA, and that, in my opinion, was activism, but it was the revelation of what was happening in the streets, right? And so you brought awareness to what was happening in the streets, but you sort of promoted what was happening to the streets in streets that it wasn't actually happening in, right?
Right.
And so, how can we go about those type of changes in our culture? What do you think that really can happen from artists? If an artist is looking at this, what can we artists really do?
Well, I think the first thing is that we have to not be afraid to speak about it.
Yeah.
If you think about the inception of hip hop, that was the social climate, the social political climate kind of gave birth to a lot of it, but then when they started pumping money into it, we kind of lost it because, we wanted to rap about all the cars that we had and all the money and all that extra stuff. So, but I think like the conscious MC has kind of got lost in the shuffle of the commercialism that is now in hip hop and music in general. And I think that we have to at least in our culture, welcome them back and give them a voice, and not necessarily by making them go platinum, but at least playing their songs on the radio. Because you listen to some of the radio stations here in the DMV, you'd be hard pressed to find a conscious song that's addressing some of the issues that we're dealing with right now. Outside of Kendrick Lamar, or J. Cole, and maybe a few others, they even with them, they sprinkle those songs in the mix. You gotta wait till a certain time of the day or when a certain DJ comes to work to hear those songs. But it shouldn't be that way. We should be able to have a variety that includes that, and that while a person is riding to work, whether they're white, black, Asian, or whatever, if they hear that song and they're a fan of hip hop, they'll be able to understand what is being said and say, you know what, I never thought of it like that.
Right.
Just like any other rap song could invoke a certain mood or a certain response or a certain emotion, those songs, they do the same thing. They might cause a heart to change. They may, if they hear the struggle of because that's another thing that I hear hip hop artists always say. I talk about the streets because that's the struggle, that's the trap, that's this, that, and the third. Man, you're talking about you selling bricks. Like you're
Right.
not talking about the struggle. You're talking about, well, there's a struggle with committing illegal acts and then trying to hide it from the police or from your enemies or whatever. Yeah, that's the struggle. But the real struggle is when you're just with your family, your African American family, and the police pull you over, and you're card carrying gun owner, and they shoot you anyway, like Philando Castile.
Right.
You know,
In front of your kid and
so
your
that's
baby.
the struggle.
Yeah.
That's the real struggle. So those things need to be addressed in the music. It needs to be addressed, and these artists need to educate themselves. So when they are asked these questions, like I remember Young Thug was asked a question. I think it was right after either Mike Brown was killed,
Hmm.
I believe, and he was at some red carpet spot, and he was asked the question like, "What do you think about this, that, and the third?" And he was like, "I don't really get involved in any of that. I don't really know about that." And it's like, really, like this is an issue that can affect you and your children, and you don't know what's going on. You're not involved enough, but but he's rich, so and he's famous. So why should he? Why would he? So I mean, because somebody even said, was it Whitlock said that being harassed by the police or being harassed by racists is a poor person's problem. When LeBron had the N word painted on his fence. Like this is not a problem for LeBron because he's rich. Well, apparently it is a problem for LeBron if somebody was bold enough to spray paint the N word on his fence.
Yeah.
So it's a problem that affects everyone. And like I said in one of my posts today, I believe racism, like real racism, it's a mental illness. Because when you address these folks that are overtly and covertly racist, their reaction tells you that there's something wrong with them mentally. The way they scream and holler, like the young lady who tried to weaponize Amy Cooper, who tried to
Hmm.
weaponize the police against the bird watcher. The way she was on the phone with the police, I mean, she went straight into, he's attacking me, all that. She knew what to do. So it's a mental instability that's in the brain, I believe, that causes you to flip that switch when it's necessary.
Yeah. I think it's a problem ingrained in our culture. Just it's a problem ingrained in our culture, and everywhere we go. And I think there's so many times that we mix. And I'm really I'm really hardcore on this. There's so many times that we mix politics and social justice together, and
Hmm.
and we cause which it causes a divide in the country amongst certain groups, because there is a group of there is a group of politics, there's a political group that will ignore that systemic racism or racism at all, against one particular group even exist at all. And there is
Hmm.
another group that will use it as a playing card to win votes or to keep votes. And so even though racist things cross party lines, because regardless of who is in office, the racism
Right,
has
right,
continued regardless of Democrat or Republican, or it really doesn't matter who's in office. It's been the same.
right.
It's been I would say worse economically under one group and worse socially under the other, but it's been bad for both. It's been bad regardless.
Absolutely.
And so that really
Nobody's
that
hands are clean.
yeah. And like that really kills me. Like it really does kill me. Like I sit back and be like, yo, like both of these people are guilty. But to get back to what you said, when I think of awareness in a long term, because a lot of you'll see a lot of artists and stuff speak out during the emotional part of when something happens, and then after the emotional part, the anger and you cope with it because there is there is sort of an inherent anger that you feel like when it happens again, right? And
Mm-hmm.
like when that experience happens again. And you remember your experiences with it. There's the anger you feel, but then there's a cycle that happens, and you sort of repeat it, and you go back to your normal everyday, and that's where I feel like the change has to happen. Not in the emotional part, not during everybody's gonna we're going to march and we're going to speak out and we're going to do all that during the time where everyone's emotional. But it's the time where we're not emotional that is really, really important. Like, that's when the songs got to get written. That's when the awareness that's when you got to continue to progress towards change. Because if not, it's just one of them things again, right? Oh,
Right.
officer shot a black dude. Oh, okay, whatever. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Mm-hmm.
and
Right.
it turns into another like cycle of them things. The cycle's been happening for at least 70 years. The cycle has
Yep.
been happening for at least 70 years. That has been police brutality, unrest, and marching, rioting, calm down, back to normal, happen again.
Right.
Police brutality, unrest, marching, rioting. Sometimes not rioting, just marching. But then you know what I'm saying? It happens. Oh, it's like a cycle that happens, and every single time that there's
Mm-hmm.
unrest and there's rioting, there's always been police brutality that started it, and so. You know, I'm like, how do you feel like we can get a more a message a message over the airways through music, that could change the hearts and the minds of culture, not just in the moment, because everybody want to write a Black Lives Matter song right now. You
Absolutely.
know what I'm saying? Everybody want to write one right now, and that's which is cool. But next year, this may not be here next year. You know what I'm saying? And what
Mm-hmm.
can we what are your ideas going forward? How can we use music to make change in not only just in the community as far as racism goes, but in the community as far as we go? Because we got issues in the community ourselves. How can we use music to
Mm-hmm.
change the community as at large?
Well, the one of the things would be to I don't know how we can do this, but um, like our very own radio stations that we support, the DJs that we support here um, in the DMV, to open the doors to us. You know what I'm saying? To those of us who are able, who are educated enough, and are lyrically inclined enough
Right.
to address these issues, and to open the doors to us, because is I mean, I'm not angry about it. I don't want to sound like I'm bitter, but it's like every album that I've ever created, I have at least one or two songs talking about social injustice, whether it's something happening currently or not, because I feel like it's important for. It's just like the secular artists with that one gospel song on their project.
Right.
It's important, they, even though they're doing something for the label, it's important for them to do something that they actually love or feel like that is important on their project.
Right.
So those social injustice songs, or social political songs that I write, are important to me. Um, so in those situations, I think the DJs and radio stations should open the doors to us. You don't have to open the floodgates, but just
Right.
let us in.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Because the thing is, if Kendrick Lamar, like, I hate bringing his name up again, but if somebody like Kendrick Lamar or J. Cole will write a song like that, the radios will play it, and then ask the question. I wish more, or say, make the statement. I wish more artists would do this type of music.
Right.
But you have thousands of us out here that are doing that
They're
type of
doing that type
music,
of music. Yeah.
but
Yeah.
because we don't have the big labels backing us, you won't play it.
Right.
So it's like, so those are that is one way I think that we can kick down the door, but also to educate ourselves. Those of us who want to do it, educate ourselves, and so we're able to speak to, even if it's not in a song,
Right.
like, but when we have our platforms, we can address those issues in front of the audience that we stand in front of.
Sure.
Um, we can have conversations with our brothers, we have conversations with our sons and things like that. And because if we have influence as artists, then we don't always have to be uh, addressing the issue through song. Sometimes we could just talk. Just like a preacher can minister off the pulpit, he could just have a conversation with somebody and touch
Right.
somebody's heart. We can do the same thing as artists if we use our influence correctly. It's not always just about gaining fans, but if you can change someone's heart, especially if that person doesn't look like you. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
If I can address a person that may have a different viewpoint of people that look like me, then I've accomplished something, because it won't be one of those things like you're smart for a black person. You know, it won't be one of those things, but
So
it'll be
it's a
something real,
surprise.
and say, okay, I get where you're coming from. Like, I've had people say that, like, they've heard my songs and they've been like, I had no idea that that's how it made you feel, because it's people that are close to me, but they don't look like me. I had no idea that's how you. And they will apologize to me. I was like, you don't have to apologize to me. I just need you to help us change
Yeah.
how others see us and how others treat us,
Yeah.
because not to because they always say black on black crime, this, that, and the third, but criminals are going to be criminals.
That's right.
Black on black crime is just that, black on black crime. But those who are responsible for addressing the crime should not be killing us
Right.
if we're not criminals.
Right.
I
It's
mean,
a,
at
it's,
the time that they pull us over, you get what I'm saying? Like,
right.
if you're in a shootout, then you
Right.
you
No,
you roll the
nobody
dice.
nobody's gonna march when we see someone shooting at the police officer. But police officer
Right.
catch the bad guy. And I'm not saying that every black person is a good guy. That's foolish. But catch
Right.
the bad guys. We actually all want you to catch
Absolutely.
the bad guys. But when you assume that a unarmed person is a bad guy prior to catching him to figure out whether or not that's a bad guy, and then you try to turn the unarmed person that you just killed into a bad guy so that you can say that this was a bad guy, you know what I'm saying? Like,
Right.
you're doing too much. Catch
You're right.
the bad guys. You know what I'm saying?
Catch the bad guys.
It's not really that
And
complicated.
trust me,
Even in war,
police.
right? You know, if someone in the military killed an unarmed civilian, right, it would be hell to pay on both
Absolutely.
the domestic front and overseas. There would be hell to pay, because we've got rules
There
of
are rules to
engagement.
war.
Yeah,
Right.
we've got there's a whole bunch of rules. Here it's like, oh yeah, we just get away with it, and it's okay. Like, nobody, and so I'm, catch the bad guys, catch the bad guys. I got one more question for you before we got to roll out.
Yeah. And then and this is not okay. Go ahead.
No, go ahead, finish. Not finish.
Oh,
Say, go ahead.
I was going to say, and just so it's clear for everyone that's listening, just so it's clear for everyone that's listening, I have family members that are police officers.
Absolutely.
So and so I don't hate police. I feel like we need the police. Like, the police are very important. Without them, there will be chaos. But I have an issue when they are the chaos bringers,
Yeah.
when they're supposed to be the ones who address the chaos or de-escalate the chaos. That's what I have a problem with. And when they bring the chaos simply because they feel like they can, not because it's necessary, but because I have a badge and I can do it, and nobody will address me, or I will not be punished for it.
Right.
That's what I have a problem with. If I'm a preacher and I misuse my authority to molest children or to sleep with the deacon's wife and all of that, because I manipulated the word and whatever I did to get what I wanted, I am wrong.
Right.
My cloth cannot protect me. You feel what I'm saying?
Right.
So it should be the same way with police. The badge should not be able to protect you when you abuse your power the way that some of these officers have done that. And that means that some officers will have to step out and say, bro, I respect the blue, but what you're representing is not us.
Right.
What you're doing is not us. Period. And if more officers did that, then I think the communities would respect them. I believe that the officers would be treated better in the communities and respected, and if the issues would lessen.
Right. Okay, I've got a question. Because I wanna address a real issue in the world, which I hate addressing them together because they're separate issues. But I do want to address the streets. I do want to address the streets, and I do want to address crime in the community. The very terrible, a very terrible word, the phrase that we have come up with is black on black crime, and I hate
Hmm.
saying that because it's a terrible phrase. But I do want to address that in the community as it pertains to policing, policing the low income black areas because there is a misunderstanding that every area that black people live in is you can't walk in it. That's ridiculous. I can walk
Right.
around my neighborhood perfectly fine at any time of the night. It's fine. There is no shooting here. So, but I want to address low income black neighborhoods, right?
Hmm.
How should, if you were sitting in the Congress to make policy as to how to lower crime in the low income black neighborhoods, how would you like what is an answer that we can take away? Like what's a plan? Because it's a hard job. Like it's hard. Like and I think we're
Hmm.
suffering from people with the quick answers, right? The quick answers is to arm police to the hilt and throw them in there with army gear and bully poor people all day, and that's the way it works. And I think that
Hmm.
that is that is a terrible answer, and it's the fast answer, is the one everybody wants to go after, or a lot of the policing goes after this particular style of policing. But how can we lower the crime in low income black areas?
Wow. I mean, I don't know if there's a wrong answer to this question, because it's so many different ways that we can address it.
Sure.
But it's like really depends on how aggressive you want to be with it. Because the thing is, you have to first understand, you know, is the crime because happening because of it being low income,
Right.
or is the crime happening because of other elements? Like, you may have a lot of drug use in the neighborhood, so people rob and steal to buy drugs, so and to do other things. So
That's a low income problem though.
huh?
That's a low income problem though.
Yeah, yeah. But it's like you have to kind of fix the income issue.
Okay.
You have to fix the 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 demand, when it comes to, because if the you could sell drugs because there's a demand for it,
Right.
right? You can make money, and as long as there are junkies and folks who are addicted, you'll have a flow of cash. But if you take away the demand for it, like, I mean, really take it away, figure out a way to, because it's weird how this happens. I always said that when my family members and friends that I knew was dealing with drugs, it was like the answer was lock them up, arrest them,
Right.
put them in jail, right? Because they're on drugs.
Yep.
But I always thought that when it crossed the tracks into the other neighborhoods, the more affluent neighborhoods, that they were going to address it differently. And
Yeah.
that's exactly what happened. I've never seen this many commercials for drug treatments and come stay at our residential facility where you can peacefully get off drugs and all that. Where was that when my family was addicted? You know what
Right.
I'm saying? The most they offered us was jail and a methadone clinic. That's it. But offer us real solutions, like help our families really get off drugs. And then also, like, you got to think about how a lot of these folks get on drugs because they are arrested on some nonsense. Like, they can get arrested, they go to jail, and they use drugs as a form of escapism because they're sitting in jail waiting for trial, and then they come out addicted. and now they're committing more crimes to continue to feed their addiction. So that's just such a tough question to answer. But the way I can't really answer it as a member of Congress, but as a citizen of this city, the way that I address it is by trying to break the cycle within my own home. Number one,
Absolutely.
and making sure that my children and my nieces and nephews and those who I'm close to, those who are in my circle of influence, um, you know, can make a change, like pass it on, so when they get older, they can make a change, and maybe slowly we can start pushing and changing our reality, where even in the low income communities, they're low income, but they're still the crime is not high.
Right.
Because there have been situations where our communities were in low income situations, but there was no crime. We made it happen. We had community cookouts where we fed everybody and
Right.
things like that. So we can
Absolutely.
get back to those things and not have to worry about the crime element
Right.
as much. And then that way the police don't have to come in. Police can be welcome and come in and join us and be a part of it, instead of coming just to be security guards or waiting for something bad to happen so they can get off that aggressive thing that they have in them that they need to get off.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So I might not be the best one to speak on that particular situation, because it's I have different ideas, but it's like I wouldn't know how to get them started to implement it. So I just start from my home and in my circle of influence to make sure that the folks that I touch are about change and about doing something different
I
going
mean,
forward.
the best way to get it started is to talk about it on a platform that you own. So,
Yeah.
and that's this.
Yeah, true.
Thank you. Thank you so much, man. You guys, this is Russ Shanks. I appreciate you coming on, man. And we're gonna
Thank you for
continue this
having me.
conversation. You're one of my regulars, so we're gonna keep it going. Appreciate you, brother.
Yeah, no problem, man. Thank you for having me, man.
All right.
God bless everybody.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are definitely we definitely have a lot of things to talk about, and we definitely want to keep the conversation going. We want to keep talking. We want to keep coming up with solutions. We want to keep listening to everybody's side of the story. We want to listen to everybody's opinion. I think one of the greatest things on earth that we can do is listen to each other, to understand where someone else is coming from, understand what holes they may have in the way that they feel about something, and just understand how we all could make change. My name is Shawn Riff-Raff. This is the Elevation Podcast right here on ShawnRiffraff.com. Join me, www.ShawnRiffraff.com. We're going, there's a lot of things that we got going on. We've got a lot of shows, a lot of things coming up, and a lot of things that we're moving towards in the future. This is new. This is new for us. This is a new media television network. It's really, really cool. I appreciate you guys for joining me. And this is the Elevation Podcast. Peace. Thanks. I got this wrong. Peace out, y'all.